So, Sue, I would love you to tell me a little bit about what it was like for you when you were at your most unwell. What support did you get? How did it feel to be in that place and knowing that there wasn't really a solution at that point for you?
Right. So I sort of think of my illness as illness pre-Suzy Bolt and everything I learned, and Suzy post illness post-Suzy, post-RRR. So to answer the question of the pre-bit, so at my very worst part of my illness, I just felt completely alone. I knew I wasn't alone, but when I went to find answers, all I found was misery. People talking about how many years they'd been ill and how there were no answers. And I tried to do research with quite a lot of cognitive impairment. That was really tiring. And there were really no answers. I was looking for answers. I was looking for the thing. And it just felt hopeless. I felt no one else understands how I'm feeling, how frustrating this is, how scary this is, how different I am, how I'm not me at the moment, and how, that's affecting my family. It's people I love. And even people who loved me couldn't really understand it. So they couldn't help. So I didn't feel supported. My GP surgery, they're really kind, but they had no answers at all. They said, we don't really know. We'll refer you to the post-COVID clinic. Having been referred the post-COVID clinic said, well, we don't really know. How's your, have you got lots of breathing problems? No, I didn't have breathing problems at all. So what have you got? Well, I've got a lot of fatigue and my brain's not right. Well, we'll give you some pacing stuff to do. And I already knew, having spoken to people with ME, that the pacing thing wasn't going to be the answer to all of my problems. So I was really, really stuck, isolated, frustrated. I tried the punching through, because my go-to reaction to anything is to resist or punch through. It's like, no, you're not going to stop me. I'm gonna get better. I could do this. I'd always got myself through stuff in my life, so I was going to get through this. And of course, it's the opposite with long COVID. It's exactly the wrong thing to do, is to try and punch through. But once you've realised you can't punch through, what's the answer? Our natural inclination, especially as people who like to solve things, is there's going to be a solution. I'm going to find it. That silver bullet, as you put it.
Yeah.
There isn't a silver bullet. There isn't one silver bullet. It's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, what I would love people to know is it doesn't matter if you're a so-called weak person or a strong person, or, you've got a strong personality, or, you're a dominant or a submissive sort of person. It's still really hard. It doesn't actually help, being a strong personality or being determined or being willful or all those things that can help you in other parts of life. That didn't serve me, and it didn't help. It wasn't part of the answer. So I think the only thing that was part of the answer, which is part of me, is curiosity and determination, and just that I am not going to give up. I'm going to find something somewhere.
So what was it like when you first found our community? What was your first impression of what we offered? What did you think we were about?
Well, that's a really great question, actually, Suzy, because at first I thought it was about yoga.
Right.
And sorry to say this, yoga people out there, but I didn't count myself as a yoga person.
Yeah.
For all sorts of reasons. I just hadn't really been somebody who'd discovered yoga or even understood yoga. This is the truth of it. I now know so much more about yoga is as much a philosophy as it is a bunch of movements.
It's actually kind of a way of treating ourselves and others. So great. I love that definition.
Yeah, but I didn't know that before. So here I am.
Looking at the Insta, the Lycra, the sun salutations.
Yeah, and people on mats.
How's that going to make me better? I feel terrible.
Well, and also the first sort of time I saw you, I think it was you and Jez Medinger, there was a sort of Suzy the yoga teacher. Because a lot of your story about how you started to develop what you developed was through your own understanding of everything you'd learned from yoga, right? From being a yoga teacher. So, of course, there was this strong attachment to yoga. So my first exposure to RRR, to Rest, Repair, Recover community, was, there's a lot of yoga stuff. But it didn't take me long to discover that actually what was being offered was much more than that. I think the first thing, the most important thing, and the first thing is the community.
Yeah.
You know, I used to hesitate to use the phrase find your tribe, but actually I'm okay with that now, because I do feel like I've sort of found a tribe that has more chance of understanding for what I've been through and what I'm going through, and me also understanding what they're going through, etc. So a belonging. I think every human needs belonging, whatever they say.
I know one of the things that people often say is, I'm the most ill I've ever been, and you're telling me that breathing differently to how I'm breathing now is going to help me heal. And I know for a lot of people, it's like the most ridiculous suggestion. You know, like, I am so in need of dire medical assistance. And you're saying, why don't you do a nice breathing exercise? Tell me how that landed for you to start with, and what your relationship is with it now.
That's such a great question, actually, because you're right. To start with, my instant response, sort of the instant narrative in my head was, how on earth does, taking breaths in and out, how is that going to help solve so many problems that are going on in my body? Yeah. So much illness. How is just literally breathing going to help? However, I did do what I call suspend my disbelief. And I suspended it because by then, and we're a couple of years into my illness now, right?
Yeah.
By then, I realized there wasn't a magic pill. There wasn't that silver bullet.
No.
There weren't any easy answers. Yes, people were trying drugs around the world. It was all very experimental. I knew a lot of things not to do. Hadn't tried this. So I thought, look, you haven't tried it. It can't possibly hurt me. This isn't a Wim Hof, approach to breathing, which I felt would hurt me. Just to talk about breathing can hurt you.
And it would.
If you do it wrong.
Yeah.
So this looks pretty gentle. This all feels quite gentle, actually. In fact, I'm drawn towards something that I've never been drawn towards, which is gentleness.
Right.
Because before, I'd always, when it came to movement or sport or competitiveness, it was hard. Even work was hard. Push, push, push. This felt very gentle. Lots of permission to do, in fact, instruction to do less.
Right.
I loved this. So yeah, my first thing was like, really? Breathing? Just breathing? Then as I started to do the breathing classes, I found that they helped me find a stillness that isn't something I'm familiar with or was familiar with. And in that stillness, I was able to find rest. Now, I have never really been famous as someone who knew how to relax or was able to do resting in the moment, especially in the daytime.
Yeah.
So this discovery that these breathing things could then take me to a place where I could rest, that felt like it was helpful.
Yeah.
So I opened my mind. I suspended the disbelief and the cynicism and the skepticism and went, well, how is it going to hurt?
Yeah.
And actually then what I realized, to go to the second part of that question, is it's incredibly powerful. Who knew that with the right type of instruction, breathing can really help you, really help your body.
Breathing right.
Yeah.
Breathing
correctly with the right instruction. And that's why I say the right instruction. And for me, that doesn't mean any old breathworks teacher. I think I really want to share that, because people could say, oh, well, if what this program's all about is, breathing and meditation and yoga, and well, you can find that anywhere. No, hang on a minute. Let me tell you what's different. This is in the context of people who are chronically ill, are really struggling with debilitating fatigue. Energy management is a feature of every day.
Yeah.
And so when you're learning this stuff around breathing or meditation or yoga, it's in the full knowledge that that's your reality.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to have to alter some teaching from another breathworks teacher who doesn't understand fatigue.
Right. Who doesn't specialize in that world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, and it's a very real specialism.
Yeah.
But it's
absolutely.
a very rare specialism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't find it everywhere else. I mean, this was literally, wow, there's these people, and they just, the going in context is they already get it. They already get what I've been going through, and I feel like I've been on this journey alone for 2 years.
Yeah.
now I feel safe because I'm not going, well, I'll have to adjust that program.
Everyone
for
else
me.
is well.
Yeah.
And I'm in the corner having to
Yeah.
freestyle and look
Yeah.
after myself.
Yeah, absolutely that. So, in fact, beautifully, which sounds terribly selfish, I'm not the illest person in the room.
Right.
I actually haven't been bedbound
Yeah.
for years. I was housebound for a bit, but I hadn't been bedbound. And so my heart went out to the fact that there was this spectrum of people, some of whom had been much more ill than me, and then others who were recovering well, and that was hope. So there was this sort of empathy over here and hope over there. And I thought, oh, I'm liking this spectrum. This is good. This is nice for me. And I'm somewhere in there. And I love how in the program there are these levels. And this level 0 is, and if you're doing this from bed. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just beautiful. Because it's inclusive.
Yeah. We're fully aware that some people, for them, getting a screen open and pressing the login button is them done for the day, and they just want it in the background to kind of listen to whilst they have their eyes closed, and they're allowing their body to stay exactly where it needs to stay, which is in bed, in deep rest. But they want company because it's so isolating. And you want to hear other people who really understand what you're going through, talking about it with each other. Because that in itself is a normalization of what can feel utterly alien. So if you've got 100 other people going, oh yes, today I'm celebrating the fact that I managed to take a shower. Or I used a hairdryer and it put me in bed for 2 days, but I'm still loving how my hair looks. That is your tribe. And you can go, oh my goodness, these people are having the life I'm living and they're having it too. And now I don't feel so strangely abstracted from who I was. I've just joined another gang for a while and I feel normal here and welcome, and I can talk about all the things that are just so difficult to explain to anyone else.
There is also this incredible talent in the community. So I sort of, I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised to find that that community included, doctors, so, social workers, teachers, scientists, corporate people like me, all sorts of people, all sorts of people, really smart, resourceful, capable people who'd found themselves through no fault of their own in this debilitated state, and were just as frustrated as me, because they too were capable people who had this sort of life pre-life, and then suddenly,
and all of the usual resource, throwing money at something, having a couple of days in bed, just weren't working. It doesn't matter how many times you repeat those things, nothing was changing. And that's when it's almost like you've been crawling through the desert for ages with, loads of signposts going, help might be this way or help might be this way. Oh, but it's a dead end. Oh, there's nothing here. And then this oasis appears and it's our community. And there's just people there kind of going, well, we're all over here and we're kind of, we're not doing anything different, but we've got food and we've got water and we've got a nice cozy place to rest. And it's like, oh, thank God. Can I just talk about how hard it was in the desert? And everyone's like, yes, we know because we've been there too.
I was at the darkest place emotionally. I mean, that desert analogy is amazing because I really had pulled myself across, that desert.
The dunes.
Where is the oasis? Maybe there is never. Maybe there is no oasis.
You
thought
could be
of that.
Forever.
That hopeless thought is a very, very dark place. Even for the optimist, even for the resourceful person, even for someone who's always found solutions to problems. Both for myself and for other people. I had started to think there was no oasis. So, to your analogy, so that was amazing. I think the other important thing to say is, having gone, oh, wow, there's all these other people and they're also capable and they're also da-da-da. It was also this thing about not being encouraged not to wring our hands with the sadness, not to focus in too long on the symptoms and instead to share the positive stories. That doesn't mean to ignore or to deny. That's not about being gaslit. That is about saying, look, we get it. We've it's tough, it's hard. But here's what's lovely is when you hear someone else's story, even if it's just washing their hair for the first time in months, everyone genuinely is like, woo, We're so pleased for you.
And you look amazing.
And if someone had said to me, 2 years before, hey, you're going to be like watching something and you're going to get really excited about how somebody else was able to wash their hair.
Really?
It's a positive, but it's realistic. It's not saying, let's pretend there is no bad. It's just saying, look, it doesn't serve us to constantly think about the bad, dark things. But, oh, hey, if there's something you need to ask this community, the chat's there.
Yeah.
The people are there.
Yeah.
You can post a question. You will find answers because all of us have tried to find answers. So it's going to be this global response. And it really is global.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Now, sometimes we have to say to the Americans, sorry, we can't get what you get over there.
Yeah, right.
So that's not an answer in the UK.
Yeah.
But the fact is the intention and the goodness and the kindness is there. And that's a rich seam.
Yes.
Where there was no seam before.
Yeah.
Right. So that's wonderful. I love that. I love the humour. I mean, let's come to the joy. So I had been bereft of joy for quite some time. I'd lost my joy mojo. And I'm a person that loves fun. I'm quite gregarious. In our family, humour's a thing.
Yeah.
And I'd sort of lost my sense of humour.
Of course.
It's not hard, is it? I mean, maybe after a couple of months of illness, but after a couple of years, you're sort of like, oh, really?
Enough already. Yeah.
I mean, I'm resilient, but my gosh. And rediscovering fun and humour, even in the context of chronic illness.
Despite the chronic illness,
And almost because of, in some ways.
Yeah.
Almost because of, it sort of had formed this thing. And I know that the whole joy thing is very important to you, Suze, but and it's palpable when you're joining the group. I know that on your RRR sessions with Ross on a Tuesday and Thursday, you have this silliness. I'll call it silliness.
It is 100% silliness,
right? I often am not there live. I'm there after the event, but I can tell you that even if you're there on demand, like I do it, it's again palpable, and it makes me smile and laugh. And I love that you're reading out the chat and the silly things that people share. And even after the event, you don't actually have to be there live for that to be fun. And who thought you could have fun in a context of long-term illness, where you've had hopelessness,
with 100 people who are there live, who are all not very well, but actually having a bit of a riot because we're sharing stories from our childhood, we're sharing the naughtiest things we did when we were teenagers, we're talking about what International Day of the Sausage it is. Or
and sometimes wearing a crab costume.
Sometimes, if you're lucky, celebrating birthdays. We do a shared drink with each other every class, don't we?
Yeah.
And I can see the smiles on people's faces. They're just like, I cannot believe I'm lying in bed listening to this.
It's a revelation. And it does give you something back in, even on a bad day. It can put a smile on your face. And as you've explained many times, and people who study this know, you'll get the dopamine. You might even get the oxytocin.
Right.
And they can really make the difference in the day.
Yeah.
And all of that for, a really small amount to pay per week, because I'm doing the on-demand. Not that it's about money, but the fact is you don't have to be super rich to do this. And I know that you're going to be doing a lot of stuff to help people who really, really can't even afford that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been a revelation. And I talk about this Sue's lived experience of long COVID, pre my discovery of rest, repair, recover, and post. And it is like night and day.
Wow.
And I have found myself come back to me. Now, I did the Fern program, which I'm deeply passionate about. I'm really glad I chose to do it, chose to invest in doing it. I invested in doing it immediately after I had to give up my career.
Right.
Which was a big decision because it was spend.
Yeah, of course.
I was like, oh, crikey, I'm not earning anymore. But I feel like I need to do this more intimate, this deeper thing. And both, I think, and I wouldn't have known about Fern if I hadn't have discovered Rest, Repair, Recover. No. And now I evangelize about this Fern program to anyone who's unfortunate enough to be close to me when they ask me, so what do you think's helped you to get better? Because I'm getting better.
Yeah, great.
And there are the elements within that Fern program that some of them are, extra special, like believing you can get better. I had lost my belief that I would ever get better. So that whole thing about you've shifting to you will get better. You will get better, but it's not a race. Don't put a timeline on it. Don't do what you always do, Sue, with targets, right? Goals and targets, but know that you will get better.
For some people, the fight has been so long, it's easier for them to sit in a place of not believing that any improvement is possible. And actually, for me, when I talk about it with people who are more in that space, it's about looking at what does getting better mean to you? So what does that look like? Because I think understanding that health isn't a destination. It's not like you're on a train and you're going to arrive at health, get off the train, and then you're there. It's not like that. So for me, when I talk about recovery with anyone, I talk about recovering bits of yourself.
Yes.
Recovering the joy of something, recovering bits of your life, bits of your ability to go out and engage in the way that you did before, perhaps, or in new versions of the way that you did things before. So I think it can be a really big and quite triggering word for some people, that concept of recovery, because for most people, recovery is only getting back to who they were before. Now, one of the things that I've learned, and I know you've learned, is there was a lot of things that I did in my life before that really deprioritized my health and my well-being. And they put them really low down the list above, looking after my career, running around for my clients, taking care of my children, and all of the other things that I kind of worried about. And I realized actually about 80% of my behavior towards myself wasn't as kind as it could be. So for me, I've had to change a lot of my life. There were certain big things that I can't tolerate that anymore. I'm not going to allow that in my life anymore. I'm going to change how I do some of the ways that I work. I'm going to make radical redesigns to allow my nervous system to feel much more grounded more regularly. And as a result of that, my immune system can function better. And I am, on the whole, generally happier and more well when I'm really prioritizing myself and my needs and actually saying no to a lot of things and not overbooking my schedule every single day of the week. And when I do those things, I'm healthier. And when I don't do those things, I get burnout. And the same symptoms come back. And it's like, here's a lesson. I'm going to just keep learning it, and I'm going to keep learning it. I'm going to keep learning it. So actually, when people say to me, am I recovered? I say I'm 100% recovered. Am I still getting health issues? Yeah, I still go down because at times I deprioritize my health and well-being. I have ADHD. It's really easy to get into that overwhelm and burnout. But I know how to pull myself back. I'm lucky there has been no major structural issues that have changed, everything. For some people, that's there's other stuff that they're dealing with. So, for me, I know how to pull myself out of chronic fatigue episodes and bring myself back. And I've got a different life. I've got a different version of the life that I lived before, but I would say it was more in tune with me. It was more respectful of me. And it was definitely more aware of, if I do things that disrespect the wealth and the health inside my body, it will show.
Yeah.
And so it's about, for me, that's what recovery looks like. It's more about the way that I treat myself. So I know I can come up and out of a cycle of feeling below par, or a crash, whatever people call it. But I don't ever get anywhere near as in bed and stuck there as I was in the early stages of my recovery. So for me, that's what recovery is.
Listening to you talking there, one of the things that I know is different with me is I'm listening to my body.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten how to listen to my body. And when you're younger, I mean, you can get away with murder with your body.
A lot.
Right? And you can put it through all sorts of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I'm okay. I'll bounce back. But then if you add, I'm 63 now, you add decades of various other stuff as well as the physical stuff you put yourself through. So mental stress, emotional stress, cognitive stress.
Yeah.
And you're adding all those things over, and they're invisible, all of those things. So if you bring all those into play over many decades and you're not listening to your body, which may have given you clues, like, for example, I got shingles. I think that was my body going, hello,
right?
You are not listening.
So
hello. But I just went and got the pills,
Yeah.
got better,
Carried on.
cracked on.
Yeah.
Cracked on. I didn't know that was a huge, great signpost going, something's gonna happen, something big. That, you know, there's gonna be a straw on that camel's back. Well, for me, the straw on the camel's back was getting this toxic virus called COVID.
Yeah.
It could have been other things, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I feel better about that narrative than the sort of nightmare narrative of COVID. I was always good at setting boundaries with other people. I'd learned to do that through my career, because otherwise companies abuse the hell out of you, right?
Yeah.
They'll take every last drop of blood of your talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in especially large companies. So I'd learned to set boundaries about other people with other people, but I hadn't done the setting boundaries with myself.
Yeah.
And especially with my health.
Mm.
So I sort of had these moments, these revelation moments through this journey of discovery that I set out on, starting with rest, repair, recover, and then Fern, and lots of branches out of that, because with my fellow Fernies, they'd done other research, they'd found other things. So it's not just Fern and RRR, but there are some really, really critical elements of how I now live and how I'm working with myself to enable that journey towards better health, sustainable health in the future. I don't think there'll be a moment of recovered. What I do say to people, though, is that I am recovering, because I know I am now recovering.
Yeah.
And I think some of the most powerful things I've learned are, first things first, back to listening to your body, listeners.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard, because some of the symptoms, they're very subtle, they're surreptitious,
Stealthy.
They're stealthy is a great word, and so it's not obvious. It's not like a rash. I don't get rash. Rash comes up and you go, oh, hey, now I know.
Right.
And it's sometimes almost not too late, but you're quite into the symptom before you go, oh, darn it.
Yeah.
That means I've overdone it.
Yeah.
So that can be irritating. So learning to listen harder, learning from what's happened before, what can I do about it? But more important than that is letting go of the fear. So I was in a fearful place a lot, Suzy, and I don't count myself as a fearful person. Now, I could be wrong there, but I sort of identify with being strong and brave and courageous, and yet this illness had brought me to such a dark place of fear of never getting better, fear of the symptoms, which can be so frightening.
Well, they can.
And so hard to explain to anybody.
Yeah.
I used to describe like this feeling of sherbet in my veins.
Fizzy blood.
Fizzy. And I thought I was the only person ever that felt that. And I was trying to explain it to my family. They were like, oh, no, don't understand. And then rest, repair, recover. It's in the chat and someone's like, I've got fizzy blood today. That's me.
Is this a thing?
But that makes it less scary because it normalizes it.
Of course it does.
So I don't have to attach emotions to that. I don't have to... I don't have to become all or nothing about this. I don't need to be black and white about this. It just is. It is what it is.
And we know it passes.
Yes, and it will pass.
Yeah.
And I now trust that it will pass. I now know that it will pass because it has passed before. It will pass again.
Yeah.
And in that statement is acceptance. Acceptance was my most tricky piece because I'm very resilient to a lot of things and resistant to things. And someone going, oh, well, probably better if you accept it. I'm like, really?
Because what does that mean? Probably better if you accept this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to lie down and just say, okay, this is it.
Give up.
Right.
Give in.
No.
Now I have acceptance. Now I can say, it is what it is today because it is what it is today. It will pass.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm okay with that and I'm not angry with it anymore.
Yeah. I'm not going to fight my body.
Yeah. And I've learned about what helps and I've learned about what doesn't help. And I've learned that tomorrow will be another day, next week will be another week.
Yeah.
And I'm so much calmer about it.
Yeah, good.
Right. But also yoga nidra. Oh, thank you. I didn't even know there was a thing called yoga nidra.
It's just guided sleep.
Guided sleep. It has just been a revelation to me. It's been incredibly important to my healing.
Right. The whole concept of rest. I didn't even know how to properly rest. I think the only time I rested, which was why I fell in love with the physical practice of yoga, was when I was physically practicing yoga. And if I'd done at least an hour, then there'd be a point where I was physically and mentally calm at the same time. But otherwise, the whole idea of rest was, I didn't really know how to.
No.
But Yoga Nidra is something that's guiding you. You have to follow instructions and a kind of, but actually all you're doing is helping your body go into sleep.
Yeah.
Which is such a gift when you desperately need to rest because you're ill and your body needs time and help and space to repair. But resting is just this impossible thing.
Yeah.
So I love that you've fallen in love with Yoga Nidra.
Oh, my body was like, this heavy weight, but my brain was like, I've got to find a way out, got to find it, can't stop, got to find an answer. And Yoga Nidra has me stop doing that because it's somatic, because it's going through my body. I never knew what somatic was.
Right.
Because I'm literally going through, feeling through my body in this lovely, gentle way. And I really love it. One of the classes that I've got on record on demand, which is you, it's like one of my favorites. It's my first favorite, is you doing a Yoga Nidra, where you're getting us to sort of relax all of our muscle groups through our body. And you do it by tensing first and then relaxing, tensing first and relaxing. And that really works for me.
Yeah.
Because as a previous sportswoman, I like to be able to sense and feel my muscles.
Right.
And I'm like, I know how to do I know how to do follow instruction. So that keeps my brain following the instructions, not going somewhere else stupid.
Yeah.
And it actually helps it to release. So I'm going through my body, tensing, releasing, tensing, releasing. Oh, and there's a point at which I suddenly get a big yawn.
There it is.
And that's my parasympathetic system going, thanks.
Here we go.
Thank you. Because my poor old vagus nerve has been absolutely, torn apart by this illness, but it's coming back together now.
Nice.
And that's nice to get physical feedback that you are relaxing.
Right, this is helping. Yeah.
And then, what I love for me, and I love about the way that you and other teachers in Rest, Repair, Recover are so inclusive and relaxed about, look, if you fall asleep, it's fine. That's okay.
If you want to do your own thing, I say, do
your own thing.
Fine.
There's not this strictness about, and by the way, some other Yoga Nidra teachers do this. You must be aware still. You must still be in an awake state.
Don't fall asleep.
Rules. Don't fall asleep. But I like the falling asleep bit because
I can't fall asleep otherwise.
Yeah, and it really helps me. It really, really helps me. So I love that you and the team give permission.
Totally.
And by the way, I am the sort of person that if you hit me with a load of rules, I'm just going to go, you're not the boss of me. That's not going to happen. And you do the opposite as a team.
Yeah.
You say, you know what? We're going to give you invitation. You do it. You do what's right for you.
Right.
And I love that. I'm really taken with that. So Yoga Nidra has been a revelation. I literally every single day do a Yoga Nidra.
Oh, great.
Even if I don't think I need it anymore, I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. It's a treat. It's my little sweetie treat.
Nice.
It's I'm going to do it because it's like, oh yeah, that's it. I remember now.
One of the big pieces that I want people to learn is that actually, particularly for those of us who've had that bodily response, that shutdown response, we need to commit to looking after ourselves forever.
Yeah.
And it can't just be whilst you get yourself up and out and back on your feet again. It needs to just be as important as drinking water and eating well. We need to go, and my nervous system also needs this for it.
Yeah.
Ideally every day, but if not, at least 3 times a week, where you are literally letting the pressure out of the pressure cooker to bring things back down. Because I think, one of the things that seems to be really apparent is if you've had your body do this response, it may well choose to do it again.
Yes.
And again.
Yes.
And again.
Yeah. Well, that neural pathway is there now.
That neural pathway is there, but also that response, that the body just says, enough.
Yeah.
I cannot cope more with this. Or I can't cope anymore with this.
Yeah.
And I really want people, and whatever it is, to understand that, if you want to get back towards a recovered version of your life and a life that is rich in joy and laughter and all of the stuff that we all want, you also need to be consistently making a contract with yourself to look after yourself forever. So, I know if I need to take a day where I cancel plans, shut down commitments and go, no, I'm really sorry. I have to not do something today because I feel that I don't have the energy in the tank, or my canary in the coal mine is singing to me.
Yes.
Straight away, I've learned I have to do that because the impact of not doing that will be felt really quickly. How do you see yourself looking after that part of your health?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think the first thing I have to say to answer that question is learning about the autonomic nervous system. This was something that was an aha moment, Suzy, from the Fern program.
Okay.
Subsequently, I've learned a lot more about it, and I've read Alan Gordon and lots of the other people that you introduce and their teachings and their viewpoints, and I've educated myself a lot more on the autonomic nervous system. Why am I bringing that up? Because my illness, my version, my flavour of long COVID is very much to do with my autonomic nervous system going and being very dysregulated, because multiple factors led it to just go, that's it, crash.
Yeah.
And so going forward, what does that mean? What that means is I'm now aware about the ongoing need to keep my brain calm and to tell it it's safe. I mean, again, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you'd have said, Sue, you'll be talking about your brain, your mind, and your body and the linkage and how important it is to tell your brain, do the manual override and say, this is safe, so that it doesn't overreact and you don't get some of the symptoms that you've experienced. But to be safe and to say authentically to your brain, hey, you're safe, means you have to create a life that serves you better than perhaps what happened before. So overworking, putting your career and work and overdoing it, trying to prove to yourself endlessly how damn good you were, let go of that, because that doesn't serve you anymore. And that's a long-term thing. Recovery isn't just for Christmas. Recovery is for life. So what are the critical elements of recovery? It is about really thinking hard about what didn't serve me before, what patterns didn't serve me before, what activities didn't serve me before, that drained so much out of me that ultimately it led to me being vulnerable enough to COVID to be able to do what it did to me. So wouldn't it be quite smart not to go back to those things? That's the point of learning.
Right. I've always just got right back up again and just carried on.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been on the floor, practically dying, but now I'm back up on my feet and I'll just keep going. But now I'm just so much wiser.
Yeah. That badge of honour, I have literally taken it off and thrown it away.
Nice.
Because society does make you feel the need to have the badge of honour that goes, I can just do so much all at the same time and I just can keep cracking on. And look at me.
Right.
And in fact,
just for example, let's look at the expectation of women to have a baby and then lose all their weight and get back to work and do all the things that they're brilliant at. We've so distorted ourselves from the idea of looking after this vessel that is our body, that carries our brains around. We've just so abstracted from it that we're often quite disrespectful to this thing. And, the body often will give lots of little kind of, I'm waving a little flag over here, but I don't know if you're paying me attention. And then at some point it just goes, right.
Yeah.
Taking away the keys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That whole thing about, something's just come up from what you've said there, which is, I have to own my body.
Right.
I have to own this. I have to own this amazing, amazing thing that is a healing machine.
Right.
But I have to give it the chance to heal.
Yeah.
Which is, don't keep throwing toxins, whether those are psychological toxins, cognitive toxins, physical toxins, medical toxins. Give my body a chance to be the healing machine that it is. And that's the long-term opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And everybody. That and the tools that I now have, that when I have not so great days, that it isn't like, that's it, it's all over, I'm
back to the beginning.
I'm back to the beginning. No, and those are very powerful tools, emotional and mental health tools for me going forward. But I think that the badge of honour, people say, so the hardest, the toughest thing that people say to you ever is, are you better now? Are you better?
Yeah.
Oh, you look better, because of course we never necessarily look ill.
Right.
Oh, you're better. And that is just such a toxic word, because there isn't a state of better.
It's like, have you arrived at the station yet? That one's called recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Better.
Yeah, great.
So I don't need the badge of better either. Poof.
Yeah.
That can go.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do my best to give my body the best chance it has to live its as good a life as it can.
Yeah.
Of being a healing machine, carrying my beautiful brain around with it.
Yeah.
But let's not use the word better, shall we? Let's have a contract with that, shall we?
Right.
So, yeah.